Does Joseph Williams have the potential to be one of the best wide receivers in the Big 12? Let's talk about it.
You are Locked On Buffs, your daily podcast on the Colorado Buffaloes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Buffs. I am your host, Kevin Bohr, but today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets when you win your first $5 bet. We are also brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day for free and available wherever you get your podcast. So make sure to like, subscribe, and follow. Who doesn't love free things? And who doesn't love Jeremia Poplin? Jeremy is the sideline reporter for Tulsa. Jeremy, I appreciate you hopping on and giving us some background on our new guy, your former guy, I guess we could call it.
Yeah, no problem. I appreciate the invitation. Always love being able to talk like good young players, and Joe was definitely into that category. You know, I wish him nothing but the best there at Colorado, and the potential is obviously there.
Yeah, I think when Joseph hit the portal, it felt like one of those things where it's like tough for a smaller program because it's inevitable these days when a player sort of pops off. It's like, okay, people are going to come or people are going to come with the offers. And he had a lot of schools after him. But let's circle back to his recruitment, because I think most people would just assume he was like an underrated wide receiver recruit that just didn't get enough looks. But in actuality, he was kind of like a jack of all trades, a Swiss Army knife in high school. He played some quarterback. He was kind of like a wildcat quarterback in a way, played some receiver, played some defensive back. So talk to me about his recruitment and how Tulsa found him.
Yeah, so there at Mansfield, like you said, I think his junior year, if you go and look, I believe in that Wildcat, he threw for almost 1,000 yards on top of some of the receiving numbers that he had. They got a bigger quarterback to come in for his senior year there at Mansfield, at like a 6'4" kid that I think's taken a couple of visits already to Tech and Texas A&M. I'm trying to remember his name off the top of my head right now, and I can't. But that kind of helped shift Joe to more of a permanent fixture at wide receiver his senior year at high school. But people need to understand what type of athlete this kid was. You can go and look at some of his track numbers that he was putting up, and they're flat out impressive. On top of just his receiving yards. And Kevin Wilson, who was the head coach at Tulsa at the time, more on that coming up in a bit because that plays a key role into him actually being at Colorado, in my opinion. It was always quick to point out that we felt like that he was good enough for us to play safety. Numbers-wise, it just didn't work out because safety was one of those positions that Tulsa needed experience at for last year. They had a wide receiver in Malachi Jones that actually transitioned from wide receiver to play safety. So it was a numbers thing, but like, don't get it twisted. Athletically, he is good enough to do a number of things. And you might just look at, I fell victim of this. I looked at him from his recruitment numbers and I was like, okay, well, here's another, are they factual on his 6'2" height? Are they factual on where he's at weight wise? He's a big kid, like, honestly. So, and we've all been kind of fooled by some of the numbers that are coming out on this, but first time I saw him, I thought, okay, he definitely fits the profile for what they were trying to do here from the receiver position.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy how events around you could sort of guide you into a certain direction, right? Joseph has been playing wide receiver for, we'll call it 2 years now, at least at the high school, college level. Yeah. And he was one of the better transfers in the country. A lot of people were after him. Utah was after him. There was a ton of programs that saw the potential there. He was the freshman of the year in the American Conference and kind of did a little bit of everything. And he had an immediate impact for Tulsa. And I want you to talk about that because you mentioned, and we both have kind of hit on it now, he wasn't necessarily like a wide receiver guy. It was just like, hey, you're a great athlete and we'll figure out what to do with you when you get here. So talk to me about how he stepped into this role and how things unfolded.
Yeah, they definitely had the vision. So Tulsa's plan, because of the smaller school status, it's a little different now because they've committed more money to the NIL side. So Tulsa was going to have a heavy-handed high school class his year that he ended up committing. They saw the positives for the defensive side, but from a numbers perspective, this was a very large high school class. They needed to inject the program with youth. There wasn't a whole lot of youth. The plan initially, if we're just being honest, was not, in my opinion, for him to play right away. They had receiver group was one of the groups that actually had some depth, and they had a few transfers come in. Jeremiah Ballard was a UTEP transfer that came in. Zion Steptoe was a Purdue transfer that came in, and they had Cam Benjamin, who was all conference at wide receiver at Tulsa before. So they had depth. The problem is injuries. Ballard got injured his first game, and Steptoe didn't necessarily have the type of transition from Purdue that they wanted. So the season started to go downhill to a certain extent, and that's when you saw this. We got to get young guys in here to play, and we need to get them experience because we're building for the future. So you just go and look at some of Joe's numbers. And from an immediate impact, I don't know if I'd necessarily say that, because you just look at his numbers, and I pulled them up here just to make sure I was correct. He did not have his first reception until the 28th of September at North Texas. And that was a weird game. That was like a 24 to 30 point swing in a span of 4 minutes in gameplay. And the game got completely out of hand. And Joe played well in the second half. His big game that he broke out in, to me, did not happen until November 2nd at UAB. He had 6 catches for 112 yards and a touchdown. The next week after that, it was 5 catches for 158 and 3 touchdowns. Then he goes to South Florida. That's on the 23rd. That's 6 catches, 126 and a touchdown. So immediate impact, I don't necessarily think it was built that way right off the get-go. And Ryan Switzer, who is a wide receivers coach, and if you know anything about college football, what a stud that dude was at North Carolina.
One of the legendary mixtapes.
He puts a lot on his room. He said from the get-go, is like, these young guys, I'm throwing a lot at them. Not only terminology, but the demands that I have for my young guys probably are a little bit higher than a few other wide receiver groups. So it took a little while for Joe to adjust. He was a freshman and kind of going just through that, normal adjustment period on top of having a very demanding wide receiver coach. But I specifically asked Coach Switzer, who was named interim coach after Kevin Wilson was let go. So was there a moment for Joe that you felt like the switch flipped? And he was like, not really a moment. He was like, it was a lead up to it. And this tells you how detailed that Ryan Switzer is. He goes through and checks the wide receivers' notes, like in the meeting rooms. Like he'll go through and be like, let me see your notebook. Let me see what you wrote down. And he was like, that was my first sign. And looking at the detailed nature of Joe and his note taking. And he was like, I could start to see it started to click a little bit. And the big thing I think with a lot of freshmen, and Joe is not immune to this, was he needed some confidence. Once he got a few of those catches at North Texas, the coverage was heavily skewed towards trying to take Cam Benjamin out of the game. So he was able to kind of pick up off of that and had a lot of opportunities, which he made the most of down the stretch. So as much as say immediate impact, yes, on the practice field and in the wide receiver room, but on the field, he became the American Freshman of the Year basically off of 1 month of play, which is crazy. The majority of his yards were from November on, which should tell you that he's just barely scratching the surface with how good that he is. And Ryan Switzer even said that Joe does not understand how good that he is yet. He has a confidence about him. He's a very level-headed young man. Everyone loved him here, but it's one of those where that's the next step to me that's so intriguing about him moving to the Big 12 into a program like Colorado is I know he has the ability to do that, but is he still kind of raw, to your point, about not having played the position full time for an extended period of time yet?
Yeah, and I think you made some really interesting points there. One, the note-taking thing is just a fun tidbit because I think there's so many, I guess, different coaches in college football that have such a weird college football coaches are weird for those of you that didn't know, but it's such a weird
you have to be, by the way. And that's that like you don't mean that in a knock, and I say that as well. No, like they're control freaks, and some of them are just flat out weird, and they have to be.
Yeah, and like for Ryan Switzer, like for those of you who don't possibly remember, North Carolina stud, made his money and living on special teams, was a great receiver for North Carolina, made it to the NFL. Like he knows what it means to sort of be an overlooked guy work his way up to the highest level and make a career for himself. So he gets it. And he's like, I bet you he takes that mindset of like, if I had your talent, this is what I would be doing. Or if I had your body or your frame, because he's not the biggest guy. So it's nice to see that he has such a unique way to coaching. In terms of Joseph having to, I guess, I won't say grow up as in he was immature, but he has to grow up as a receiver. I do think it'll be an immediate, I guess, jump for him at Colorado, because I don't know if people realize this, because believe it or not, other Colorado players were in the draft, right? Shedeur Sanders wasn't the only one there, and he was the biggest story because he fell so much. But Colorado had 3 wide receivers drafted, which was the most out of any school in the country. They also had a 4th who's probably going to get signed as a UDFA. So they're losing, we'll call it 4 NFL wide receivers. They were all key guys. And so now you're looking at this room where it's like, okay, someone needs to step up. And they've rebuilt through the transfer portal. Shocker, I know that's what Deion Sanders does. Do you think Joseph Williams is ready to take that step to sort of go from like, okay, you're this raw freshman to like, hey, dude, we need you to be our number 1 guy right now?
If it's the Joe that I remember from the last handful of games, I think I would say yes to that. It's an interesting question because of some of the things that we talked about. To me, there's no doubt in my mind that the potential is there. The potential is there for him to be one of the better receivers in the entire conference. I just, not having been around him now and not talking to some of the coaches that have been there, I don't know where his mindset is at, since he left Tulsa, and how comfortable he is with the move. And that's not a knock. I think that's everybody, right? How many guys have we seen now that have committed to a team out of the portal, and then the next thing you know, they're jumping back in the portal because they're not comfortable? Now, Joe hasn't done that, but not having been there to talk to him and find out like how this experience has gone, it's tough for me to answer. But potential-wise, there's no reason why he can't be at all. And it got to a point. And if you want me to, I'll send you some clips that we filmed from the UAB game. That dude was unstoppable, absolutely unstoppable. East Carolina as well was another one of those games, and not just your average plays. The catch radius, using his body to shield off the defender, the understanding of angles to go up and catch the ball in traffic. It was so I've been doing this like 11 years now, and there are a couple of guys that stand out to me. Like Kevin Lucas was incredible at Tulsa. Kira Scarrett had a cup of coffee in the NFL. Those guys were great at that. And Joe was showing signs of being able to go up and make big plays like that.
Yeah, I think Joseph in the spring game, it wasn't his best play by any means, because I think it was an incomplete pass, but it was like a back pylon throw, and the sheer vertical he showed to go up and get this pass where it looked like it was going to sail into row 3 of the bleachers, right? And I think he got a hand on it, but he came down with it, didn't end up coming down with it. But yeah, you could sort of see like the makeup of like, okay, this guy could go up and get a pass, or this guy is a freak athlete. And in Colorado spring game, for those who on the Tulsa side, he was very clearly like the predominant target for both quarterbacks, right? Colorado has a very interesting quarterback battle going on. And the one constant in that spring game was Joseph Williams, right? We kept hearing his name. We kept hearing it. And I think even with some other transfer portal additions coming in, I still think he has that ability to be Colorado's wide receiver 1. And so I wanted to get your final take on him before we go. When I say Joseph Williams' ceiling, I'm not saying like what limits him as a player, but what do you think his ultimate, I guess, reach is as a player? Like, is he an all Big 12 guy? Is he an all American guy? Like, he's going to have a couple more years in the system, assuming he stays at Colorado. He'll have Caden Salter throwing him the ball, or Julian Lewis, whoever wins the battle. So he's going to have a lot of unique quarterback plays, and Colorado likes to air the ball out. So what do you think his, I guess, ceiling is as a player?
Yeah, ceiling through his career, to me, there's no reason why he can't be an all Big 12 type player. This year, with transition, kind of the quarterback thing, I mean, I would think if he were to even place on one of the Big 12 teams, and it doesn't have to be first team, I think you should be over the moon about that, right? From a kid that just transfers in that's still incredibly raw. So that's kind of where I would put that at this year. And it sounds like, from what you're telling me, that even with some pressure on the young man of needing another guy to step up, that he has done so at least through the spring so far. So I hope that he can carry that over. And I'm nothing but happy for Joseph. Like, in this world, an opportunity comes along and you got to jump on it. And I know everyone here was disappointed, but we completely get it. Like, kid had the opportunity to go make some decent NIL money and go play at a premier program. So, best of luck to him. But yeah, you're not going to find a bigger fan of him than what I saw in year one.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, Jeremy, tell the people where they could find you and what you're working on. So that way, maybe one day we'll circle back and cross paths again.
Yeah, a couple of things. You can check out my YouTube channel. It's at Poplin Show, POPLINSHOW. If you go to newson6.com and news9.com, pretty much anything on the sports side is written by me. So I don't know if this is a sensitive subject or not, but we're knee deep in the Thunder and Nuggets series right now. So yeah,
it might be actually,
which is odd for me as a Spurs fan, right? As a massive Spurs fan, this whole thing is odd for me. But yeah, you can check out any of my work there.
Spurs, you know what? He's trying to bring up sensitive topics because he got the second pick. It's okay, Jeremy. We know you won a Cooper flag. It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah, but here's the funny thing, though, Kevin. You know as well as I do that there were hundreds of thousands of people that were nervous as you know what when it was down to the Spurs and Mavericks for the number one overall pick. Yes. And how many people thought, are they going to do it again? This is unbelievable. And as a fan, I was doing the same thing, like almost chuckling, like, this can't be real.
Yeah.
I think good for the Mavs, but
yeah. I feel like the Mavs kind of needed it, but Wemby and Cooper would have scared us. I think the entire NBA. So I'm not saying I'm glad that you didn't get Cooper flag, but I'm not disappointed for you.
Oh, I don't blame you for that at all. Yeah, if you're not a Spurs fan, I wouldn't blame you for that at all. By the way, I got to say this before I go. Yeah. The three that Jokic hit last night was maybe one of the holy bleep moments, like out loud, like almost at midnight here in Central Time, while everyone else is asleep in the house, that you just can't help tumble out of your mouth to tie it up at 103. Just I absolutely love that dude. Love every element of his game.
Yeah, it's what he does, and he keeps finding ways to shock us, and we'll see if the Nuggets can sort of, I guess, turn it around or keep it going. Well, I don't know what the proper term is, but I appreciate you for hopping on. I appreciate all you guys for tuning in. I will see you guys tomorrow. Excuse me. This episode of Locked On Buffs is brought to you by our sponsors over at FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time. Easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. So, if you're new to FanDuel, it's a perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet, and if it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Welcome back to Locked On Buffs. Appreciate you guys for tuning in, making me your first listen of the day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast, so make sure to like, subscribe, and follow so I can keep my job and so we can have some fun covering the Buffs. Let's talk about the newest / old transfer portal edition that the Colorado Buffaloes made. They went out in the portal, added another receiver, because I do think that I feel like there's a lot of talent in this room. That being said, I still feel like there's a lot of questions in this room. When you lose 4 NFL caliber receivers, that's a pretty big drop off. So the Buffs had already added Sincere Brown. They added Joseph Williams, who we talked about on the show. And now it's like, okay, who's next, right? They have Draylon Miller or Marion Miller. They have Hakeem Williams in the mix. And now they go out and get a veteran. Now, is this a guy who's a proven 1,000-yard receiver, 50-catch guy? No, but he's a guy who loves Colorado. His father played for the Buffs, was a part of the championship team, and he actually started his career in Boulder. His name is Jack Hestera. Jack was a walk-on, made an impact with the 2022 team, recorded 14 catches for 157 yards, and then was a part of the group that left. Ultimately, he ended up at Charlotte, where In his lone year in Charlotte in 2023, he had 349 catches, 349 yards receiving, 28 catches, and 3 touchdowns. And then he ended up transferring a little bit closer to Boulder. Ended up in Logan, Utah State, 24 catches for 340 yards and 4 touchdowns on 14.2 yards per catch. He also had a carry for 4 yards. And he's a guy that I think you can move all over. I think he's a veteran presence who, given an opportunities, will make plays when needed. I don't think I expect him to come in and be the guy right away or be the guy at all, really. Like, he's a complementary piece for some of these guys that are expected to be the heavy hitters, the home run hitters, if you will. And he's just a dude who's a route runner. He's a guy that spent time in Boulder, loves Boulder, and I think it's a nice addition. He's just when you think about what Colorado needs, is they need playmakers, and sometimes it's, I won't say the most random people, but sometimes it's not always the 5-star recruits or the 5-star transfers or the big body transfers that are the ones that make the biggest impact. Like, maybe he comes in, takes on like a Jimmy Horn role this past year, in the sense of Jimmy Horn was obviously an NFL receiver, had a lot of NFL traits, but Jimmy wasn't lighting it up by any opportunities. He made some plays. And so I'm not saying that he's going to be better than Jimmy Horn, but maybe he could be like that 4th receiver who could make a catch in a bind, or they can use him in a jet sweep or whatever, right? So I like the new addition here by the Buffs. In total, now the Colorado Buffaloes, their transfer portal class is getting pretty big, and better. They're ranked number 19 in the country. The class is now at 28, and I still feel like there's going to be a few more additions somewhere down the road. I would project 4 to 5 more additions. I think they need some help at linebacker. I think they need some more help at running back, right? I like DeKalen Taylor. I do think he's going to be good. I just think that once you lost, I just feel like once you lost Isaiah Gustav, you need another guy to go in there, get in the mix, contend for the starting spot, right? So I'm loving the Jack Hestera return. Hopefully this time in Boulder is a lot better for him than his first time, because obviously Coach Prime kind of shooed everyone away. But if they brought him back, they brought him back for a reason. They saw something in him, and it's an exciting sort of reunion. So everyone go make sure to say what's up to Jack and welcome him to Boulder, because, I mean, it's not every day that someone leaves the program, proves himself at 2 different programs, and then gets an opportunity to come back. So pretty big deal there. When we come back, we're going to be talking about Colorado's first high school commitment of the 2026 class. Welcome back to Locked On Buffs. Appreciate you guys for tuning in every single day, making me your first listen of the day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow so you don't miss out on a moment of the coverage. Okay, let's talk about Colorado's first edition. It's a pretty big one. They beat out LSU. They beat out Wisconsin. So 2 programs known for producing guys at this position. They landed Gavin Mueller, a tight end from Wheaton, Illinois. 4-star, according to On3. 24/7 has him as a 3-star, 840th player in the country, 42nd tight end, 18th player in Illinois, 6'5", 255, 23 offers. Now, here's what they had to say about him over at 24/7. Estimated to hover around 6'5", 255, with an 82-inch wingspan and above the rim athleticism that translate from the court to the field. Played his first season of high school football as a junior, so he's very raw, very new to football, working as a wide receiver and tight end and defensive end for Wheaton St. Francis. Profiles as an inline wide tight end at the next level, who could use his physicality at the line of scrimmage to create route running lanes and his frame to box out defenders at the first 2 levels. Has shown the ability to make plays at the catch point and excels at tracking the football in crowded conditions. Played through a shoulder injury and underwent surgery following his first season. Should be viewed as a high upside attached tight end who could blossom into a key piece for a college football contender, playoff contender, that is. So like the addition there. I think Colorado's clearly made it a point to go after top tier tight ends, right? They need more weapons. They need more from everything on offense, really. It's going to be a very different team now without Shador, without Travis, without Jimmy, without LaJonte, without Will Shepherd. And they need guys who could come in, step up, make a play. So love the addition, right? I think he's a guy who pairs nicely with Zach Atkins. They have Zane D'Souza coming into the mix. They have a lot of tight ends in a room that just last year they were relying on Savell Smalls, who's a former defensive end, and Sam Hart, who's a former walk-on, didn't really do much, right? So I like what they're doing at tight end. I think tight end is going to be a featured position for them. It allows them to go into some 22 looks, two tight ends, or some 12 personnel, whatever it is, right? They're going to be able to mix things up on offense and not be so one-dimensional in the sense of like, okay, we're going 4 wide, 5 wide all the time, right? It gives them an opportunity to mix things up on offense. And at the end of the day, you need more diversity because teams will start to key in on it. And I think we saw that towards the end of the season. So pretty big addition for the Buffs. They now have 2 players committed in the 2026 class, the other being a junior college player who happens to be the son of their new defensive line coach, who, I mean, there's a lot to be excited about him as well, right? I think when you just look at, I guess, Colorado's not getting off to the strongest start. I think the ball is going to start to roll. They got D'Amato Pecco Jr., number 3 player in the JUCO ranks, number 1 athlete in the country at the JUCO level. So the class is looking interesting, right? You have to love it. You have to like it. But either way, I think Colorado is going to start really hitting the nail on recruits as they move forward because they made some pretty big impressions, which we'll talk about as the days go on. So I appreciate you guys for tuning in, making me your first listen of the day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow, and I will see you guys tomorrow.